It was just another typical Tuesday morning. My classroom was the first one anyone would see when entering the school. Positioned by the lobby, right next to the bathrooms, I taught history to middle schoolers. The bell had rung and class was in full swing when, without warning, the lockdown alarm blared through the halls. This wasn't a drill. The eerie, unmistakable sound meant something real, something dangerous was happening. My heart dropped. Instinct kicked in. I rushed to the door, locking it as quickly as I could. My hands trembled as I pushed desks quietly but forcefully in front of the door. I turned to my students and, with a finger to my lips, signaled them to stay quiet. We huddled together, hiding under the desks, out of sight from the windows. They were terrified, and to be honest, so was I. In my 3 years of teaching, I had never experienced something like this. At 31 years old, I thought I'd prepared for every possible scenario, but this, I never expected to be part of a real lockdown. I needed to keep calm for them. I grabbed the classroom phone and dialed the office. 3 rings and no answer. That sinking feeling in my gut deepened. Then, faintly at first, I heard it, a knock. It was so soft I thought I imagined it, but then it came again, louder this time. The students' faces paled as they turned toward the door. I approached cautiously, my heart racing. A voice, low, urgent, whispered through the door. "Please let me in. I'm in danger. I'm out in the open." The voice chilled me to the bone. I glanced at my students, their eyes wide with terror. The knocking grew more desperate, the voice louder. "Please, let me in." I forced myself to speak. "Who are you?" A brief silence. Then the voice replied, "It's Miles." I was heading to the bathroom when the alarm went off. "Please let me in." But something was wrong. This voice, it was too deep, too adult. There was no way it belonged to a kid. The students were trembling now. I took a step back from the door. My mind raced. Should I open it? What if it really was a student in danger? But my gut told me no. Silence hung in the air for a moment. Then I heard it, a soft, sinister chuckle. My skin crawled. Whoever, or whatever, was on the other side of that door wasn't a child. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, the principal's voice came over the loudspeaker, announcing the lockdown was over. I exhaled in relief, but the tension in the room remained thick. Later, in the teacher's lounge, the truth was revealed. A 40-year-old man wearing a clown mask had entered the school. His weapon, a Nerf gun. But in those terrifying moments, we had no way of knowing it was fake. The man had been arrested a few blocks away, still wearing that grotesque mask. Even now, I can't shake the fear of what could have happened. The thought of opening that door haunts me. If the man had been more forceful, who knows what might have unfolded. I haven't had another experience like that, and I pray I never do. But to this day, the memory of that sinister laugh still echoes in my mind. It was 2020, right at the start of the pandemic. The world was shutting down, streets were empty, and everything felt uncertain. My parents had left to visit my grandparents, both in their 80s, a few hours away to make sure they were all right. They had people caring for them, but my parents wanted to check on them personally. Understandably, they wanted to make sure their parents were safe during those scary times. So, that weekend I was home alone. Just me, a 17-year-old boy, counting down the days until my 18th birthday. Now, all day I had this strange feeling in my stomach. Like something was lurking, something bad waiting to happen. It gnawed at me, but I tried to shake it off. I convinced myself I was overreacting, paranoia fueled by all the chaos of the pandemic. To distract myself, I drove out to grab some McDonald's for dinner. The streets were eerily quiet, as if the world had pressed pause. But that feeling, just wouldn't leave me. By the time 11 p.m. rolled around, nothing had happened, so I began to relax. I yawned, thinking maybe I had been wrong, maybe everything was fine. I crawled into bed upstairs, letting myself drift off to sleep. That's when it happened. The sharp sound of glass shattering cut through the silence of the night, jolting me awake. My heart slammed in my chest and I froze. The house alarm started blaring and I could hear voices inside my house. 2 men. I could hear one giving orders, the other following. My pulse quickened. I grabbed my phone from my nightstand and did the only thing I could think of. I rolled under my bed and hid. My breath was shallow and my body trembled, but I knew I had to stay silent. They were in my house, and they were coming closer. I heard the first man speak, his voice low and dangerous. "Check the upstairs bedrooms?" Each word sent a fresh wave of fear through me. The sound of doors being thrown open, one by one, echoed down the hallway. They were searching. I could hear them rifling through drawers, moving closer and closer to my room. Then they were just outside my door. "Try this room," one of them growled. "This can't be for nothing." The door swung open and I held my breath. I could see their shoes from where I lay under the bed. They began tearing through my room, opening drawers, searching for something, anything. I prayed that they wouldn't look under the bed. Every second felt like an eternity. Then suddenly sirens. The loud wail of police sirens pierced through the night, sending the two men into a panic. Without hesitation they bolted. I heard them crashing through the back door, the sound of their heavy footsteps fading into the distance. Moments later, the police were at my door, calling out, "Police! Come out!" I slowly crawled out from under the bed, still shaking. When the officers found me, they asked if I was okay. I nodded, barely able to speak as I told them what had happened. Turns out they had already caught the two men. They didn't get far. And here's the chilling part. They were my neighbor's sons. One had a long history with the law, the other, not so much, but he was going to jail now. They had overheard my mom telling someone that our family would be out of town for the weekend. They figured they could break in, take what they needed to survive the pandemic. But when they realized I was home, their simple burglary turned into a home invasion. They told the police that if they had known I was there, they wouldn't have broken in at all. But here's the thing, what if they hadn't realized I was home in time? What if the sirens hadn't come when they did? I still get chills thinking about it. What saved me wasn't just the police, it was that gut feeling. That nagging instinct that wouldn't leave me alone, telling me something was wrong. And that's why if you ever feel like something's off, don't ignore it. Whether it's a subtle feeling or a full-blown alarm going off in your head, trust it. Your gut feeling might just save your life. Always trust your instincts. Stay safe. This is a story that I've never shared publicly before. It still haunts me to this day, and sometimes late at night I can feel the fear creeping back. It happened when I was 16, back when my family lived in a small house in a quiet neighborhood. We had this unfinished basement that always gave me an uneasy feeling. I tried to avoid it as much as possible, but like most unfinished basements, it was where all the junk and extra stuff ended up. Unfortunately, my bedroom was right above it. One summer evening, my parents had gone out to a friend's party, leaving me home alone. I was used to being alone by then, but there was something different about that night. From the moment they left, I had that same uneasy feeling that I couldn't shake, like something was off. I tried distracting myself by playing video games, but the unsettling feeling in the pit of my stomach just kept growing. Then came the noises. At first, I thought it was the house settling, the typical creaks and groans you get in an older place. But then I heard something else. A low, soft tapping. It was rhythmic and steady, like someone lightly drumming their fingers. I paused my game and listened. The sound was coming from the basement. At that moment, my stomach dropped. The basement door was right down the hall, and it suddenly felt way too close. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, maybe just pipes or the wind. But something inside me knew better. I grabbed my phone, walked over to the top of the basement stairs, and listened carefully. There it was again, tap, tap, tap. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to go down there, but the curiosity and dread were unbearable. I had to know what was making that sound. I turned on the flashlight on my phone and took a deep breath. Slowly, I opened the basement door. The air that hit me was cold, much colder than the rest of the house. I could see down the stairs, but everything beyond the bottom step was swallowed by darkness. My hand was shaking as I shone the light into the black void. I started creeping down the stairs, every creak of the old wood making my nerves jump. The tapping had stopped, but I was on edge, waiting for it to start again. When I reached the bottom, I swept the light around the room. There were boxes, old furniture, and random things we hadn't touched in years. Nothing seemed out of place. I was about to go back upstairs when I heard it. A shuffling sound right behind me. I spun around, the flashlight beam shaking wildly. There was nothing there. I was starting to convince myself I was imagining things when the sound came again, louder this time, shuffling like something was moving. It wasn't in the room with me, it was coming from inside one of the walls. The wall behind the staircase. I stepped closer, my flashlight illuminating the bare concrete. I could hear the sound more clearly now. It wasn't random, it was deliberate, like something was scraping or moving behind the wall. My throat was dry and my whole body was tense. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I wanted to leave, but I was frozen, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. Then, without warning, I heard a voice. It was faint, like a whisper from far away, but it was there. I couldn't make out what it was saying, but it sent chills down my spine. My legs finally kicked into gear and I ran up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind me. I locked it as if that flimsy lock would keep anything out. For the rest of the night, I sat in my room, phone in hand, waiting for my parents to come home. Every little noise made me jump. I didn't hear the tapping again, but I knew something was down there. When my parents got back, I told them everything. My dad thought I was just scaring myself, but to put me at ease, he agreed to check the basement. I went with him, clinging to his side as he went down the stairs. He looked around, checked the walls, and even knocked on the one where I had heard the sounds. It was solid. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He told me I was imagining things. But I wasn't. A few weeks later, we had a plumber come by to fix a leak in the basement. When he broke through the wall near the staircase, he found something that made my blood run cold. There was a small, hidden crawl space behind the wall, just big enough for someone to squeeze into. And inside that crawl space, they found old food wrappers, a blanket, and a rusted pocket knife. Someone had been living in our basement. They must have snuck in when no one was home and hidden in the walls. The noises, the tapping, even the shuffling, it had been them. We never found out who it was or how long they had been there, but I know one thing for sure. If I hadn't trusted my instincts that night, I might have come face to face with them. Sometimes the scariest things aren't ghosts or monsters. Sometimes, it's the people hiding right under your nose. Trust your instincts.